Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Dad Talk. Today, I've got a special show lined up for you. Got a great friend of the podcast that's going to be on here, and this will be our first time going live. You guys gave in some calls. We'll be listening to those in a minute. Really quick, before we get in the show, I'm going to try to say all this as quick as I can. If you're watching this, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. The content that we're going to be talking about today is a very important one, and we want to make sure to get it out to as many people as possible. Also, this Christmas, we want to make a difference in one of these dads' lives. We've already sent Christmas out to about 6 different dads and families that are going through these family law issues that might not be able to provide for their kids this holiday season due to many different reasons. If you would like to contribute to that, 100% of the proceeds is going to be going to these dads, and we're going to be throwing some in there as well. Venmo, Dad Talk Today, no spaces, get that over to us. I'm going to talk a little bit about our guest, and then I am going to bring her on. The first time I met Miss Kim Klacik, I had just got done doing a legislative meeting trying to get shared parenting there in Georgia. Instead of going back to the hotel room, we went to the Save America rally where we knew she was going to be, along with Alan West and a couple other people. When she came in, I was one of the first people that she saw, and I said, Kim, I've been wanting to talk to you. I saw your video about Baltimore. Have you ever talked about the fatherless issue? And I'm going to tell you, she said, you know what? I know it's something that's affecting my community, but I haven't really gotten a chance to study it. Take down my phone number. Next time you see me, I'll know about it. Well, I'm going to tell you guys, I talk to a lot of politicians, and I know that she does too. Sometimes they tell you what you want to hear, and then you never see any follow-up. This one was different, and I'll never forget this. Just a few short months later, I'm at CPAC, and I see her standing at my booth. I was like, hey, can I help you? I'm ready to interview. Sat down, started talking about Section 8, the incentives, the breakdown of the nuclear family, the whole 9 yards. She did what she said she was going to do. And I'll never forget that, because that's rare. That is very rare, guys. With that said, I want to bring on my friend, Miss Kim Klacik. Kim, what's going on?
Hey, how are you? How is it going?
It is going all right. I see you have been all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in your beautiful state of Georgia, there's been a lot going on. So I've been helping with just the coverage.
Yeah, I definitely. It seems like the last few elections that the whole nation's attention has been on my state. I am sorry for that, guys. I don't have any control over it. But we are definitely fighting a war out there. And I think one of the biggest wars we are fighting, you hear people talking about making America great again. I don't know that we can make America great again until we make the family great again. I believe a lot of the problems that we're facing is with the families. Could you tell us a little bit about the fatherless crisis and how you think that's playing into what we're seeing, Kim?
Oh my gosh. So in Baltimore City, I know everybody knows about the crime, the violence, and just all the troubles that we have here. But, we have this one issue, and I think this is where it stands out the most to me. I don't know if you ever heard of these squeegee kids.
Yes.
These are young men that squeegee windows on the intersections in Baltimore City, some of them very dangerous intersections. I don't want them out there, but they're usually between the ages of, say, maybe 10 to 24. And so they're washing these windows for $1. Now, most people have windshield wiper fluid and the wipers, and it's things that you don't need. It's a service you don't need. But these kids, they'll knock on your windows. Some of them are a little aggressive. Some of them are very polite, but they're out there trying to. You have me there?
Yeah, I got you.
They try to make a few bucks. And so it's interesting because whenever they're approached by someone, whether it's law enforcement or anyone just trying to ask, why is it that you're out here? What is it that you need? And how can we help you? If you ever listen to some of these kids and what they say, it usually goes back to the fact that they didn't have a father in their life, or they did have a father in their life and something happened where that relationship was broken. And if you ever listen to them, you can tell that really a lot of those young men just need that father figure, that role model. And so some of them are out there trying to help, with bills. Mom can't pay for it on their own. And then some of the kids are out there because, look, they haven't really been disciplined in their lives. I'm all about single motherhood. I think mothers do a great job, but at the same time, dads are extremely important. And the more and more we put that off, the more and more I think we're going to see things like we see in Baltimore City. And if you ever look at the numbers, such as those that are, going in and out of the juvenile justice system, those that go in and out of the prison system, those that have maybe dropped out of high school or even middle school, many of those kids, I would say 90% of them, do not have a father figure in their lives, right? It's not a coincidence. This is just the facts.
Oh, definitely. And for anybody that's never been there, let me tell you, I went to Baltimore and I had no idea what to expect. This was before your video came out, okay, that exposed a lot of this. And I was right there in Midtown. I was interviewing a lot of the candidates, and I can't tell you how many times I was confronted with one of the squeegee people. I mean, every time I turned around, hey, can I wash your windows? It's like, what's going on here? It looked like a third world country.
Yes.
And when your video came out, there was a lot of people that said, oh, she's just making it look worse than it really is. I don't think it's that bad. Guys, it's worse. Okay. It's even worse if you get down into the heart of Baltimore and see what these guys are going through. We got to make a few more trips up there. Here's one of the pictures from the last time we was up there. As you can see, there's one of the gentlemen with paint all over his shirt. He heard there was going to be a fatherless conference there, and he came straight from work, didn't change or anything. But Kim, what broke my heart, 9 out of 10 of these fathers that we were talking to that were trying to go through the family law system now and fight to be with their kids grew up in a fatherless home. Now, later on that day, I was invited to speak at Trump's Golf Club up in Bedminster, and I did. But I'm not going to lie to you. The whole time I was there, I was thinking, I want to go back to the streets. There's more to this. I didn't realize what was going on there. So we did. And we ended up seeing all the different substance abuse clinics. I was seeing Suboxone wrappers all over the sidewalk. We see a gang on one side of the road with kids out there, a woman smoking crack, and the cop sitting right across the street. And we go and talk to him, and he said, look, we are told to sit here just as a deterrent. That's how bad it is. We get into the substance abuse clinics, guys, and it was amazing. They said, nobody comes and does what you're doing right now. And they was like, thank you. So the workers came out, and so did some of the addicts, every one of them, fatherless home. Now they're dealing with substance abuse, marriage problems, all these different things. Do I think that the fatherless issue is causing everything? No, but it usually is one of the biggest common denominators that we're seeing across the board. And I see what you're fighting for out there. There might be people that said, you're never going to win that district, or you're never going to do anything there. When you see what's going on there, guys, that's a cause worth fighting for. And I want to thank you for doing that, because another thought in my head while I'm out there is I said, you hear all these politicians that are wanting to make a difference here. Where are they at? How many of them have had conversations? How many of them are walking down these streets and seeing what's going on? They're not.
No,
they're not. But you did. And I have a lot of respect for you with that. What are some of the other things that people might not know? I think you did a really good job at exposing the problem down there. But there's only so much that you can do in these videos. What's some of the other issues that these dads might be facing outside of the family law system trying to be a father to their kids?
Yeah, well, you brought up a good point there. A lot of the men that you met that want to be more involved in their children's lives, a lot of them did grow up in fatherless homes themselves. And so they want to break that cycle. Right. And I do believe individuals like that, why not give them a helping hand in making sure that that happens? So I wish that we would take more time in trying to help the men that want to be father figures, that want to be in their kids' lives. I wish we could have better programs to assist them. I know there are people working on it, the nonprofit Fathers Fighting for Fathers,
yes,
by Marcus Trent. I know he's working on things. But at the same time, we do have issues within the court system. I know you know this very well. I have seen so many different scenarios. I've heard so many different stories. And, I can't put myself in everyone's situation.
Right.
But I wish that we did maybe have more conversations with women as well on why it's so important to make sure the fathers are in their children's lives. Look, I know people break up. Sometimes it's a horrible breakup, right? There's resentment, there's anger, there's all types of things. But I do feel as though, as parents, as adults, we can put those things aside enough to make sure that our kids, number one, they're not feeling the stress and the tension, and number two, so that they're with both parents and understand that, look, my parents can be mature enough adults to make it work for me. So I wish we did have maybe some more outreach for young women as well, just making sure they know how important it is. Because guess what, Eric? A lot of the young women that I've met, and I had a nonprofit in Baltimore City for 8 years. A lot of those young women grew up without fathers in the home as well. And so this is something that you'll see time and time again. And I think, when you grow up in that situation, you might not know how important it is. You might not know what your life could have been had you had that structure at home. And so I do hope that we can address that issue as well. But yeah, there are many issues. We got 15,000 vacant homes in Baltimore City. We have a homelessness issue. We have a lot of kids that are living in shelters that are going to school every day from a homeless shelter, right? I mean, they feel as though they don't have any stability as well. But there's a lot going on. And of course, the crime and violence. You got a lot of kids that are reaching out to gang members. You saw gang members there, and you saw kids with them. They reach out to gang members because that is the only real male role model that they see, right? These guys, some of them got the flashy cars, they got the weapons, they've got the cash on hand. And there's a lot of young men that say, look, I want that same lifestyle and I don't know how to get it other ways, so I'm going to go this route. And so then you have a lot of young men getting involved in the gang element when really they were just looking for a father role model or figure. And so I think that there's ways that we can get around this, but we have to take a real approach to it. We can't just continue to watch it happen and turn our backs. We've got to be serious.
100%. I was shocked to hear what I heard from them. We went around and said, guys, if there was one thing that you could change about the system, or somebody said, we will give it to you right now, that would help these issues. We said, what's the number one thing each one of you would ask for? Every single one of them, Ken, said, we wish we had mentors. We wish we had men in our lives to show us the way, because we didn't have that. My mind was blown. I was not expecting that answer. I was expecting, we need to change legislation, or we need to do this. They all said they just wanted more men to come out there and speak with them and show them what to do, because they never had it. That's heartbreaking. That really is heartbreaking. And, like I said, I think there's such a disconnect. Here I am, country boy from, Waverly Hall, Georgia. And now I'm on the streets of Baltimore, and I'm seeing things that I didn't know existed. Okay. I mean, you're in here, the lack of opportunity. Some people might not understand this. It is so easy to get wrapped up in that, if that's your environment, right? I mean, and we have all made mistakes. There's nobody out here that doesn't have skeletons in their closet. That is a part of being human. But some of these guys might end up getting involved with the wrong characters, and it would be easy to do. And if they get in trouble, that follows them for the rest of their life. I mean, Kim, I just wish I knew. What do you think some of the solutions are to the overall problem out there? I mean, it's so complex, because I think there's many cogs to the wheel, but how do we start getting some solutions in that area?
Yeah. So like you said, it is very complicated. Eric, I used to ask this question all the time, because I would always hear in cities like Baltimore that they need more rec centers. They need more things for kids to get involved in. And so then I would look at places like, rural Shamokin, Pennsylvania. And I would say, okay, well, these kids growing up in this area, they don't have much to do, right? There's not a lot more to do in the city to get involved in. Why is it that you don't see that kind of crime and violence in Shamokin, yet you do see it in cities like Baltimore? And you know what, Eric? I had to sit back and think about it. In Shamokin, Pennsylvania, guess what you have? You have the family structure. Most of those kids are growing up with two parents within the household. In the city area, they are not. And I do believe that is a serious connection there. It is whether or not you've got two parents in your life, doesn't have to be in the same house, two parents in your life, and helping you, guide your way through life. I think that's huge. Another piece of this, honestly, I know, I know people will say, "Well, Kim, that sounds like a conspiracy," but I do feel as though Democrats, and I don't want to say all Democrats, but many Democrats in office in Baltimore City, they leverage the urban struggles to line their own pockets, to get more grant funding or federal funding. And so right now, there's this big push to address trauma in Baltimore City, and the Biden administration is now sending money to Baltimore City for trauma programs. Now, there are a lot of kids that have gone through traumatic situations, adults as well. But I do believe because they have this dollar amount that's attached to these programs, you've got more and more people in office taking advantage of that and kind of pushing it, right? If you want to address trauma and make sure that the next generation isn't as traumatized, you would think you would make some moves to do more about getting the repeat violent offenders off the streets, do mandatory minimums, doing things like fixing the education system so that there isn't this cycle of trauma, but they're not doing that. They're not addressing the root cause of it. They're basically just glossing over it because at the end of the day, they know they're going to get bucks from the Biden administration to just deal with the trauma itself. So we also have to have people in office that are going to take some of these things seriously. That's going to say, you know what? I understand that we're getting federal funding for this, and we're going to go ahead and use it correctly, address the issue, and then we'll move forward from there. But unfortunately, we have so many dishonest people in office that aren't actually doing that. The money doesn't hit the ground. I know you were here in Baltimore City. You probably saw after the riots in 2015, the area that you were there in on Pennsylvania Avenue, that's where the riots were. And you can see that it still looks exactly the same after millions of dollars was supposed to come into that neighborhood. And so that's another part of this. Politicians have to do their job. We have to elect the right people, and we have to take family structure seriously.
Where's that money going?
You know what? Your guess is good as mine on that. I don't know.
I mean, I hear a lot of those same things, that just blows my mind. They're giving this money, but a lot of those people was telling me it's looked that way for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, this is just crazy. I know the fatherless crisis is a crisis. It doesn't know any discrimination. It can be any race, any gender out there, but it does seem like the Black community has been targeted, and we've seen it really start to shake their world. I've heard of it as low as 70%. I've heard it as high as 80%. Either way you go, we're around 3 or 4 kids growing up in that community are without their dad.
Yeah.
What do you think it is that's caused that, Kim?
Gosh, I think, some of it might be culture, right? I mean, if you ever look at African immigrants that come to this country, right? Whether it's first generation or second generation, whether it's Nigerians, those from Cameroon, they all take certain things very seriously that many African Americans in some communities don't take seriously. Number one is education. Most Nigerians go on to be doctors, judges, lawyers, right? They take education seriously. And number two goes back to the family structure. If you've ever noticed, African immigrant families usually have both parents in the household, or at least both parents in the children's lives. They know how important it is. Here in America, for some reason, the culture and the mindset in some of these communities is just so different. And the only thing I can think is, like I said earlier, if you grow up in a situation where you didn't have maybe your father in your life, perhaps you don't know how important it is. Perhaps you're just ignorant to that fact that things could have been a bit different for you had your father been able to be there. Now, of course, we do have a lot of fathers that were unfortunately locked up in prison. And we have to be honest with the fact that, in the 90s, we had that 1994 crime bill. Baltimore City was one of those that got hit. I talk about it all the time. President Biden, along with the congressman that I ran against, Congressman Kwesi Mfume, who co-sponsored that bill, they were locking Black men up for very long periods of time for something as small as a dime bag of marijuana, right? And so these people were out of their children's lives. When they got out of jail, they tried to get back in their kids' lives. Perhaps the mom had moved on or what have you. Perhaps the dad then trying to get a job, having that on his record, trying to pay child support, then he was delinquent, right? The way the system is set up, you could keep somebody out of their children's lives. we have to also look at the system and how it's set up. I don't understand it. Maybe Eric, you can explain this to me.
Yeah.
But when a man mixes out on child support payments, why do we sometimes send that man to jail? How does that help the kid, right? He'll never be able to pay those payments if he's sitting behind bars. And is that the way that we should go about this? You can explain this to me better, because I'm looking at it as saying, okay, well, if he's behind bars, he definitely can't help his kid.
Oh, 100%. You know, it goes back to Title 4D of the Social Security Act. I don't know how familiar you are with that. When Reagan was governor of California, he started no fault divorce. He later said that was his single biggest regret when he was in office. What happened is divorce skyrocketed, and so many single moms were going on welfare and food stamps. It was draining the system. So initially, they created this Title 4D of the Social Security Act, and it was supposed to be a good thing. It was supposed to help recoup some of the money that the federal government would give back to the states based upon child support where there was TANF. Okay, around the 90s, Mr. William Clinton, everybody's favorite president, that was sarcasm, did something where there was a means bill, and it made it to where they collect incentives off of every dollar paid in child support. It all boils down to, like, let's put it all in a nutshell. If you want to make the most money in that system, whoever makes the most money gets the least amount of time because they pay the max in child support. There's bonuses, there's incentives that go out to the people that are inside of the family courts, and they know about this. It's much like Section 8, right? They give the Section 8 incentives. Anytime the government gives an incentive in there where they can make more money to destruct the family, we see more destruction.
Right.
And right now, family law is one of the most profitable businesses out there. They make billions of dollars. There should be so many other ways, Kim, that we can make money besides this. These kids need their parents more than ever now. I mean, look at those streets. You know, what would that squeegee worker be like if we would have had both parents in the home there with them? And knowing that there's incentives that causes that, that's very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. No, and you know what's so crazy about this? A little personal side note. You know, I was married for 8 years. My daughter's 6 years old, and so it didn't work out between my husband and I. And so we're separated now. Separated for about 2 years now, but he's still very involved in my daughter's life. I mean, you know, he sees her almost every other day at this point, right? Because he understands how important it is. And he has other kids as well, where he's very involved in their lives. And it's like, you know, I just wish that there was a way that we could really tackle this, because I know many women. Yes, you probably are upset if your child's father is delinquent on child support payments, but any woman would know him sitting behind bars, or having more penalties against him. You're that much further than getting a check from that guy, right? So it's like, look, you need him in the life physically, emotionally, and sure, financially, and he can't do any of those things if he's behind bars.
Oh, yeah. Or I mean, the first thing they do is take their driver's license.
Right. Which I don't understand.
How are you going to get to? Well, it's all a way to make sure that money's funneling in the system. And let me be honest. There is a lot of women feeling the heat off of this too, because in the cases where the mom is making the most money, we're seeing those cases go in the other direction. I mean, look at Kelly Clarkson, the singer. I think she's paying around $150,000 a month in spousal support. Kanye just got on $200,000 a month in child support. Yeah. How is that child support, Kim?
Yeah.
There's just no way. The system is broken. I mean, the system has been broken, and we got to get involved. And I appreciate, I think there's such a big disconnect. A lot of people don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, they don't start paying attention until they're a part of it. Right? We got to start getting this education out there. And like I said, knowing that we got people like you talking about these issues makes me glad. Guys, I got some voicemails that you left for Kim. We're going to go through a few of these and give your thoughts, or give our thoughts on that. Keep them coming in. 762-441-0281. I'm going to play the first one right here, Kim.
My name is Jason. I'm in Carroll County, Maryland. I'm a father and a veteran who's been fighting for custody for 9 years for my son, and have faced false accusations, perjury, and allowed by the judges. And pretty much a corrupt court system and lawyers.
Can you not hear it?
No, I don't hear anything.
Oh, wow. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I might have to end up reading it to you. This was a veteran that was in Carroll County, Maryland. You know where that's at?
Oh, yes, I do. Yep.
Yeah, he was saying that he went through false allegations and everything, and he had been trying to get custody of his kids, and it feels like everything is just going against him. I mean, I can almost tell you where a lot of these voicemails go, and guys, I'm sorry, we might not be able to play it if she can't hear it, but our veterans that are going over there and fighting wars, a lot of those guys come back over, and when they come back over, they find out, I don't have a family anymore. And when they find themselves inside a family court, if somebody makes false allegations or just comes at them, one of the biggest things that's used against our veterans is PTSD. You were in the military, so you got PTSD. You don't need to see your kids anymore. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
So they're just automatically saying because they were in the military, because they were overseas, they have PTSD and they should just move on from that. That is, so I did not realize that was happening. I had no idea that was happening. That is very sad. And so what did they just, I guess, put all layers of PTSD and all levels into one bucket and say, that you can't see your child because perhaps maybe you saw something traumatic, maybe something that didn't affect you, maybe something that did affect you, but they just all put it in one bucket as if it's just a blanket level of PTSD. Is that what they're doing?
Pretty much. It's not in every case, but it's one of the common tricks that are used, among other things that the caller was mentioning, false allegations. Okay. We talk about the silver bullet inside of family court. Say you're about to go through divorce with somebody and they've got a lot of skeletons in their closet that's about to come up, and they might not think they got that greatest case. It's so easy for them to say he hit me or he messed with his kids. Now, what this father finds himself going through, and this was really hard for me when I first started Dad Talk, because I was very leery of it. And that's what's so dangerous about it. I was like, I don't want to be talking to somebody that's being accused of doing something like this with their kids. But that's what happens to them as soon as they get that allegation. Nobody believes them. And if they can fight and show that they were innocent inside the family court, which can sometimes be very hard because the person making the allegation doesn't need proof. They just need to make the allegation. And then you're guilty until proven innocent. But if you can show that you were innocent, perjury is supposed to be against the law, but there is no consequence for the person making the allegation. When we're talking about this inside a family court, Kim, is that really no different than what we're seeing going on in politics?
No, it's no different. Look, I've been accused of federal crimes. I've been accused of everything. And it's so crazy because even though I could say, all right, look at my FEC report, nothing's missing, nothing happened. Some people will still just believe whoever they want to believe, right? That's been happening for a long time. We see in politics, the October surprises. Sometimes they're not even true. It's just, they know they could throw it out there before November elections. And then by the time elections is over, then they can say, oh, you know what? It wasn't true after all, right? But it gave them that amount of time. That's why it happens in October. So yes, anybody can just accuse you of anything. And it is terrible. I would think that it probably is very hard to disprove a lot of those claims because it's your word against one other person's word, I'm sure, for the most part. I guess, how do you fix this situation? How do you go about that?
Oh, I don't. Well, there needs to be consequences. Let's take Brett Kavanaugh for instance. We'll go into the political arena. Here comes a allegation from 30, if not plus years ago, that he did something, and now it's not happening until he's about to get appointed, and he's got to sit there. And now his reputation's ruined. They've put a stain on him. What happened to the person that was making the allegation? What consequence was there? If I can do something that can completely ruin your career, your reputation, make you lose your job, make you lose your money, there should be some criminal charges for stuff like this. That's you can't just do that. And unfortunately, we live in the PC cancel culture world that does this all the time. That's dangerous. Where are the consequences for the people that make these allegations?
No, you're right. And we saw that a lot in the Me Too movement. There were so many people that were accused of sexual assault or harassment Turned out they didn't do anything. Turned out they just said, "Oh, you look beautiful today." You know what I mean? And then it's like, "Oh, it's sexual harassment." So it is. I think you're right. There needs to be consequences. But again, this goes back to the system. The system is broken in so many different ways. And it's sad to me because even if you're looking at some of the newer cases, right? Some of like what I had, the allegations made on social media, you get in front of a judge is like, I have to throw my hands up. I don't know what to do here because we don't have anything on the books that tells us how to handle situations on social media. Right. And so even the system is broken and we're not even up with the times. And so it really is tough. And that's why I'm glad that you're always bringing a shedding light on these situations, because we need to focus on these issues, because again, this just continues time and time again. And then we have people in office that never actually tackle it.
Oh, no. I mean, I don't know if you saw the headlines earlier this week. There was, and I don't know, there's always two sides to every story. But when you know the things that we do, you start to hear these stories and you look at them in a different light. There was a dad down in California. He was a principal, had been a principal for 22 years. He even got Employee of the Year, I think, this past year, loved by his community. He got married 3.5 years ago. He said his wife got drunk one night. They got in an argument, so she made an allegation against him that he had messed with the kids. Well, the cops came and arrested him. The next day, she went and tried to dismiss the charges, said, "Hey, it's false. I didn't mean it." The damage was done. He was put on administrative leave, and he knew what was coming. He said, "I'm a man. I'm a father. Like, this is not good." And he wrote a big note on Facebook, and later went to Disneyland, I think, where his son was one of the workers, and he jumped off and killed himself. Did you see that?
I saw that. I didn't realize that was the story. Yes, I saw that.
Yes. And like I said, I mean, I've heard so many people say, "Oh, that's the sign of a guilty person." No, look, if you get an allegation like that, especially, and you're somebody in the community, right, that's very well known, you were a principal, you have all these kids up under you, and you get accused of doing something like that with kids, that guy could have proved his innocence 10 times over, but there would have been a stigma that would have followed him for the rest of his life. And, the sad thing is, Kim, I don't know if there's a way to reverse the damage that's being done. I don't know if there's a way. I mean, you got any thoughts on how we could?
I was going to say it is very tough. I mean, I know I was, talking about what I'm going through right now. Was accused of, campaign fraud and other things with campaign finances. The FEC has proved time and time again that, my team, myself, we didn't do anything wrong. But once people already heard that, they actually believe those allegations, right? Or they think, oh, there was some shady business there. And I'm still, to this day, that happened 1.5 years ago, Eric. Still to this day, I'm being questioned about it. And it's so sad and it's so ridiculous. And I'm like, look, if I stole any money from my federal campaign, do you know how much they would love to penalize me being a Trump endorsed candidate? They hate me. They hate my guts, and so, but people don't see it that way. They're just like, well, I heard this or I heard that. And, you're right. There has to be some kind of consequences. But again, you've got to change the system in the way it is so that these consequences would happen and people would be afraid of it. It is tough. And I didn't realize that's exactly what happened to that gentleman. I did see that story. Did the ex-wife or the girlfriend, did she already say that it was false and now he's already gone or
I want to be careful with this story because I think we're limited on details with it at the moment, right? And again, we're sitting here talking about cancel culture, but from what I was reading, that like she later tried to say, "Hey, that didn't happen." But like I said, the damage was done. He was on administrative leave. He was a principal. He knew what was coming. And he said, okay, before it even hits the fan, like, I'm not doing this. I did do my homework. I looked through different people in the community because I wanted to find some of the family. I wanted to talk to him and hear the other side of the story. And his community is just so heartbroken. And I was looking, I was like, this just doesn't seem like the actions of a man that would be the person that they make him out to be. Now, I understand there is situations where this is happening to kids. That's what makes this so dangerous. If we don't have consequences for false allegations, so many of them are going to be made, and it's going to get to the point to where when people hear them, they're going to think it was the boy who cried wolf, right? And it's not given the credibility to the ones that really need to be looked at. You know, we're really on the same side of that fence, but it's just, like I said, it's gotten too out of control. I've had to sit there and bite my lip when seeing those allegations that you was talking about, though, Kim, because like I was saying, guys, I've talked to hundreds of politicians, even the ones that made allegations. You show up every single time to hear about this issue. That means a lot to me. And it doesn't take money or anything to get you here. And I watched, the people that made them, like, yeah, she's running in this district, right? That she knows she doesn't have at least you were running and you were doing it in a place that really needed it. I'm telling you, people need to get out there. And I wish we had more of our guys out there fighting behind this. I think it all starts up at the top and makes its way down to the bottom, though. People might, what does politics got to do with the fatherless issue? It's got everything to do with it. Yeah. We got these incentives. We got all, I mean, it's just so corrupt. I have very little faith in it, but all I know to do is to keep speaking out. I think that's all we can do.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your voice on the issues. And you're absolutely right. The way the government has it set up, it continues to foster fatherless homes. I talk about it all the time. I mean, think about back in the 60s when the welfare state hit the Black community. Right? When you ask the Black mother to marry the government rather than the father of her child, it all went downhill. We were doing so much better after slavery until that happened, until the welfare state. And then it crumbled. It devastated our communities. I don't think, you know what's so crazy about it, Eric? When I was out there on the campaign trail talking to people that were not in Baltimore City, say they were in Baltimore County or other areas that were in that 7th district, a lot of people didn't realize that to get a Section 8 voucher, the father cannot live in the home.
Yep.
A lot of people had no idea. They believed that just the mother and the father weren't together and that the mother was getting this voucher. They didn't realize that it was beneficial for the dad to not be there, right? And it was helpful. And so even trying to just explain that and people realizing, wow, why would the government make that kind of, that situation worse? Why wouldn't they say, you know what? Here's a Section 8 voucher. Here you have it with the father in the home. This is a helping hand up, and it's going to be temporary, but it's going to help you both get on your feet and go forward as a family. That's the way the government should have handled it, but they didn't. And of course, like you said, government corruption has been going on for decades.
Oh, definitely. And, you're taking two people that once loved each other. They got a child and now they're breaking apart. They're in the middle of conflict. And we take them and put them in family court, and where we know that conflict is just going to heat up because you're not there to talk good about each other. And They really have the perfect plan. I mean, there's a lot of emotions that are attached to your family breaking up. And they just put the fuel on the fire. These are people that might not want to be with each other anymore, but they still got to come together and parent that child. We should exist to decrease that conflict. There's enough conflict out in the world right now. And sometimes we don't get to see from the outside as much what these conversations are doing. So I would like to ask you, Kim, like hearing us talk about these issues, even though you're going through your own right now, what's that been like for you hearing some of this that you might not have known about? I mean, what's some of the thoughts going through your head when you're hearing these men speak about these issues?
I feel so sorry for them. I feel sorry for the women too, that maybe have men that don't want to step up and be dads to those children. I feel awful for them. I feel that I'm blessed in the fact that luckily I married a man that understood how important his role is in his child's life. And so not everybody has that. And I understand that. Luckily, too, for me, it was a mutual agreement when we separated. There wasn't any infidelity. There wasn't any of those things. So there was not that animosity or resentment, right? It's like we're still friends and we can parent our daughter together. And so I know how tough it is. And I feel awful because you could have a situation where there's one parent that's like, look, I will put everything aside for us to be able to parent our child together. But then you might have another parent, whether it's the dad or the mom, that is just extremely immature in the situation and doesn't get it and doesn't care. And then, you're left with this broken system. And really, at the end of the day, it hurts the kids. The kids are usually devastated. And so, like I said, when you see the squeegee kids in Baltimore City, the kids that drop out of high school, the kids that are hanging out with the gang members, they're only 13 years old, it's usually a result of the situation that we've been talking about. And it's heartbreaking.
I mean, just talking about those kids on the streets with the squeegees, we had the adults in there. What is it you want? If you can name anything, we want mentors in our lives. I can guarantee you that didn't just happen overnight, and they were thinking that years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Well,
no telling.
they
Go ahead.
took the guidance counselors out of the schools. And
Really?
so, yeah, so you have a lot of young people that really have no idea how to get on the pathway to success. And so when you don't have that at school and you don't have it at home, it's very foggy for a lot of people, right? If you don't know the exact steps to take to get to be, maybe you want to be a pilot or a veterinarian, or, maybe you want to work as a longshoreman. If you don't know the steps that you take to get to that position, you could get discouraged, right? Your confidence level goes down, and you could end up saying, all right, well, this isn't working out for me. I don't know how to get there. And, I'll go to the fast track way. And here I see this guy making a bunch of cash, and that's where I'm going to head. We need people. Yes, they're absolutely correct. We need mentors. We need guidance counselors back in schools. And we need to make sure that we're helping these kids understand, here are the steps to succeed. If you take those steps, life's, about choices. You want to take those steps, go ahead and do that. But right now, we're in a situation, we're not even giving them the steps to succeed. They have no clue how to get to their goal. And that's an issue.
I mean, one of the most common things when we talk about dads is the deadbeat. Men are the answer for that too. Because if they have a father to show them the example and they can follow in those footsteps, we can help them too. I mean, we've got to heal. We've got to break the cycle, guys. And I just appreciate so much, Kim, having this conversation with you today. And I'm sure we'll be doing much more. Tell us, before we get out of here, though, what's your plans for the future? What are you doing now, and where can everybody keep up with you?
All right. Well, right before I say that, I do have to give a shout out to Marcus Trent. Marcus
Yes.
is a good friend of mine. He's got a nonprofit, Fathers Fighting for Fathers. And he's a good father himself to his beautiful daughter, Layla. But he has this idea that I absolutely love. And maybe it's already out there. I don't follow it as much. But what he's doing is he's trying to get these homes for these dads to be able to take their kids, if they spend time with their kids. Say these are guys that are coming out of a halfway house, or they're, getting back on track and they don't have the best living situation, right? But they have these homes where you can take your child. There's a room to play video games. There's a kitchen where you can learn or teach your child how to cook different things, right? It's like an actual home to go to, so that kid and you are in that environment. And I think it's an amazing idea, because a lot of men don't have that when they're getting that second chance in life. And so I love that. And Fathers Fighting for Fathers, again, Marcus Trent's doing a good job. For myself, obviously, here it is in 2022 after midterms. I'm looking at the scene of the crime, is what I'm calling it right now, because, we didn't have that strong red wave that I was hoping for. We did make some gains, but I think now that we're talking about getting a new RNC chair for the Republican Party, perhaps we're going to get somebody that really seriously. As you saw in Georgia last night, right? In Atlanta, those counties surrounding Atlanta, whether it's DeKalb, whether it's Cobb, whether it's Fulton, these are areas where Republicans need to start canvassing. They need to start doing outreach, because at the end of the day, sure, we might not win Atlanta, but guess what? That is hurting us statewide. When we do absolutely nothing in some of these very deep blue areas, it's killing us statewide. And so, yes, Brian Kemp did a great job maintaining that seat from Stacey Abrams. But, a few years from now, Georgia's getting more and more purple every single day, it seems. And so those two Senate seats should be Republican led. It's very frustrating. But at the same time, I'm looking at the landscape, and I understand that we lost a lot of seats just by a hair. And so I think that we do have a chance. I am very optimistic about it. And so I'm going to continue to look and see what we can do, whether it's my team. We might be back out there on the campaign trail. We had some redistricting happening here in Maryland. And so who knows? We might be out there by 2024. But, we're talking to people each and every day and trying to gauge exactly how people feel and how we can persuade them for their vote.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Kim, on the way out, I want you to close out the show. If there was any fathers, maybe they're out in Baltimore, they could be here in Georgia or wherever. What's some words of encouragement you could leave them with and tell them how they can get involved in this fight?
Yeah, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't ever give up on your child. At the end of the day, even if it's tough right now, I ask wholeheartedly that you continue to strive, continue going forward, and fight for your child, because you know what? At the end of the day, that kid is going to remember how hard their father fought for them. Whether it's just seeing them on the weekends, spending some quality time together with them, whatever it is, just continue to fight for it. And you know what? Also, women do mature, right? So dads, if you're out there and you have the mother of your child maybe doesn't understand it right now, but over time she could mature and understand how important your role is in her child's life. May not be today, may not be tomorrow. It could be a year from now. And that's why I don't want you to give up, because you could end up in a situation where that woman, it just clicks one day and she says, you know what? You're right. Please spend more time with your son, spend more time with your daughter. Let's figure it out.
Thank you. Much love, Kim. Tell everybody where they can keep up with you.
Yep, on Twitter, it's Kim K Baltimore, Facebook and Instagram, Kimberly Klacik, Klacik. And believe it or not, I have a radio show that's going to be starting soon here in the Baltimore area. It's going to be on Sundays. I can't give all the details just yet, but definitely follow me on social media because I'll be posting it within the next week.
All right. Kim, I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. I appreciate it. And I think we're going to see some more aspirations in the future. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you. We'll see you guys next time. Hey, everybody. Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also Super Chats, patreon.com/dadtalktoday, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.